This is Life Lessons Lounge, and I am Igina Gerazi. Here, we explore diverse life stories and the wisdom they hold. Let's delve into the stories that shape us, teach us, and connect us all. Welcome to the podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Victor, who shares his deeply personal journey as a trans man. From the early signs of his true identity to the challenges and triumphs of transitioning, Victor opens up about navigating his transformation and the emotional and physical hurdles he's encountered along the way. He also delves into societal prejudices, the importance of support systems, and the ongoing quest for personal acceptance. Join us as we explore Victor's inspiring story of resilience, courage, and self discovery. Stay tuned for an enlightening conversation. Thank you. Well, welcome, my dear.
Thank
I'm
you.
very excited that you're here.
Oh, me too. Very, very much. Thank you very much for having me. I'm very honored to be part of your podcast.
Yeah, me too. And I wanted to start because you have a special story. And I wanted to start with, how do you identify yourself?
At the moment, I'm a person in process, but at the moment, I'm identifying myself as a trans man, and my pronouns are he, him.
Interesting. And like, if you get me through this, also the transition process, like, when did you realize first that you were a trans man?
That's a very good question. Some people start with a question, where did you start your transition? And that's not actually accurate, but with whatever you ask right now, when did I realize that that's something very in place? It's really hard to pin it, actually. I think for me, it started with a pair of jeans.
Really? Special jeans.
It's hilarious, actually. Whenever I go to do some shopping, I usually know what I want to buy, and I go where I know it's kind of within my budget. And I had my favorite store where I was like buying clothes. And one day I spotted these jeans and I bought them. And later on, I realized that even though it was a ladies shop, they were not ladies pants. They were pretty straight, and like they were not profiled in your waist. So I was like, oh, this is like men clothes, but it's very comfortable. Perhaps I'll just wear a little bit more of men clothes, because why not? Deeper pockets, I can fit everything in. It's like not tight in crotch and everything. And slowly, I started buying men's clothes and like men's t-shirts, because why not? And I continued that.
How old were you then?
It was not so long time ago. I think it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So 31. But I continued, and then later on I was like more practical and minimalist. I was like, why do I have so many like cosmetics and like for my shower? Like, why do I need like three things to wash myself? Why I can have 3 in 1 or 5 in 1? Like, let's start using this men cosmetics shower gels. And it's like, yeah, I like the smell. It's very practical. And I continued. Then I moved on to perfume, which I really liked. And I think that changed the perception about myself. Then when I was living in Madeira, I started going to barber and taking this kind of haircut. While in Poland, I still had like the unisex hairdresser. So he was very often approaching my hair like it was for Porch girls, etc. So it was kind of stylish, but still very femme. And with the new haircuts, it changed my perception about myself. So I was like facing myself every day in the mirror, and slowly moving on to this more masculine look. It was interesting. And at some point in my therapy with my therapist, Sarah, and I got some feedback that perhaps there is something going on in terms of my gender identity. And then I started thinking about it and exploring it. And I realized that probably that there's something in it. And it was around 2 years ago. And it's slowly moved to the point where I think some time ago, like 1.5 years ago, I was ready to face it a little bit deeper and discuss it with my former partner. She was like, "Yeah, when I met you, you occurred to me like this boy. Like, why didn't you tell me this before?" We were like, I know, 3 years in relationship, and she never let me know before about that. So that was funny. And then I was like thinking about anything and processing. It took a bit. And then sometime May last year, I started introducing myself already as Victor, but it was hell difficult, and I did it automatically. Like, "Hey, I'm Hannah," and like it was so automatic. I would just reach hand and introduce myself as Hannah. And
Hannah is your previous name?
yes,
Okay.
it's my legal name. So at the moment, yes. And yeah, and it was like, and then I felt guilty, like, why this happens? Like, I really wanted to, introduce myself as Vic, because Vic is kind of neutral. And unless somebody asks what pronouns I have, they are kind of probably puzzled whether I'm she or he. And it was kind of soft transition. So I started with Vic. And these days I just start with Victor, just to make people aware, because it's so easy to make assumption that Vic, it's from Victoria probably, and then people refer to me as she. I know people are afraid of asking question like, what pronouns should I use? What are your pronouns, or how do you identify? It's still a challenge for people. I don't think people pause to understand, to be curious about pronouns.
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's a new development as well, right?
Yeah.
And what are some of the prejudices that you have received when going through this process?
Well, it's not easy. Sometimes it is difficult. Like, people's perception is something that people just paint their picture in their head, and after making assumption, they don't question like what's their idea about the other person. Earlier this year in February, I had a trip to Poland, so I was like, okay, so I'm going back as a man, and this is internally, I'm a totally different person. My looks didn't change much, but how I perceive myself has changed. And I had this situation in a train, and there was this person referring to me as her. And I still have kind of problems with correcting people. Sometimes I just feel guilty about not standing for myself, but I learned to let it go. And ideally, I think I want to get to a point where like I'll accept any pronouns, and it would not make a very much difference to me how somebody refers to me, because in the end, I'm a human, and we are all human, and we just need to respect, like everybody expect to be respected, right? Yeah, but it struck me, and I was pretty sad. I was like, I grew a beard, because this is my natural beard, and I'm not on hormones yet. So I was like, can you see that I have like more facial hair than like usual like femme person? Yeah. So sometimes I just feel, I don't know, rejected as a male because of that. Sometimes I have situations in public toilets. I was not, kicked out of men restroom. Yes, yet. But I guess, look, sometimes people, I sometimes there was one situation when it became really tense, and like, I don't know, in Inception, there's this scene when they are playing with the whatever they designed, the world that they are dreaming, and the people become angry and walk toward them. That's the feeling I got actually. People got really tense and like gave me looks like, what would I do in men's room? Like, I don't fit there. Sometimes it's difficult. Like, you don't. Very often I don't feel I fit. And at this point, I don't feel I fit in a ladies' room. And so I just go and deal with whatever happens in men's room.
It must be tough. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I just don't connect. I mean, I don't look people in the eye, I just storm out. It's still hard. It's still hard.
And what has this process been like for you? Also emotionally.
Well, there's a lot of waiting. Yeah, waiting. I think we need to be patient. So when I decided I want to pursue the gender transition, I got information on how to do it. And here in Portugal, I just need to go to a doctor, to a family doctor, and get referral to kick off the transition in a public hospital. And so I did it in November. So I had to wait a few months to get my in-person meeting with my family doctor. Then I got the referral, and then I was supposed to get information by mail about my appointment, which I think never happened because I never I think after that meeting after that appointment in November, I never got in this particular person I never got feedback. In June, I went to a test against STDs. That's something I recommend everybody to do from time to time. They say once per 6 months. In here in there is I think it's called GAT in Intendente, where you go and you just do walk-in tests against the HIV, and the standard one. And this pretty kind trans girl, she told me that actually I can do the same thing in there. And they acted really quickly, and I got a phone call to confirm that I want to get into this process. And I think only after that I got my first appointment, which is scheduled for December. So it's like 1 year of waiting to keep this process, which seems insane. So perhaps I'll check how to do it like privately, at least to start the hormone therapy while I'm waiting for the appointment to talk about the top surgery.
And what does that look like? The hormone therapy and all the other, the whole process.
Well, for the hormone therapy, well, I need to see the psychiatrist so they can evaluate me and give a recommendation to endocrinologist that I'm good to go, and I can start the hormone therapy, and I'll have testosterone prescribed, and probably it's gonna be shots, and that depends. I'm not really into details, but I assume it's like you just give yourself one shot per week of testosterone, and then it's like going through the whole process as a teenager. So I'll get some acne, and facial hair will start growing, and then I have no idea. Then I just left it for later. I was like, let's focus on the next step and then sort it out later. So that's about hormones. But the top surgery, that's something I want to do. And I'm fortunate enough to have a really good therapist, and she like normalized the transition for me, and made me realize that it's okay not to be 100% sure what kind of body modification I want to make. It's like I can still be trans. I can still, identify with the gender I identify with without any modifications if I don't want to. There's so many options. It's like it's not black and white that if you're a trans man, you're gonna, have top surgery and then bottom surgery, and then you'll have you'll be identical to a cis man. It's not necessarily that. So it's different for every person, for individual.
Interesting. And I applaud your courage.
Yeah, I think all in all, trans people are very courageous. We're like it's like our personal fight. Yeah, this is so we fight for ourselves, for our own identity, for our dream life, and it's interesting. I remember that since I was very young, I was puzzled what's wrong with me, and why I don't fit. I don't think like I don't feel like I fit in this society. Like, why don't I have like many colleagues, friends? And later on, when I realized I'm into women, I'm like, oh, that's the thing. So I'm a lesbian. And then I came out as a lesbian, and then obviously my mother was not happy. My brothers were pretty supportive. My whole family was fine, but it was really tough with my mother. And then I had this peace of mind for some time, but still it returned to me like a boomerang. I feel like it's still not that. And I couldn't understand when I was 29, I emigrated to Canada for 1 year, and the whole new world opened to me. And I met so many trans people, and I'm so curious about that and interested in their processes, in their stories. I had two pretty close friends. One of them was so we had a very long conversations by the kitchen table about that. I was very curious, but I had no idea at the time. And I remember my older friend Luke explaining to me that he figured out like what was wrong after when he realized he was trans man. That's the only moment in his life when he figured like actually they got this peace of mind that okay, now I know everything is sorted. And it doesn't occur to me. It was how many 7 years ago. It didn't occur to me that could be my story too. And it like 5 years passed, and then I was like, oh, I'm trans. And I connected with Luke, and I was like, man, can you imagine like I'm trans too? And he was like, yeah, I knew it. Like, how can you know it? Like, how is it possible? I didn't know. And he was like, well, no, you were so curious and you were asking so many questions. And perhaps it was more than average person would ask. But I'm in general very curious about people, and I tend to ask questions a lot. So it didn't make much difference to me whether I'm like asking this trans person about their experience. So that was funny.
Can I stop you? Because I'm curious around what is lesbian and what is trans men, right? Like what was missing for you then that you found in being transgender?
Well, right. So I think for my whole life, I really appreciated masculine clothes, like my clothes. I was always interested in suits, and like whenever I was passing, store where behind the window there was like suits. I was like, oh, I wish I could have this kind of body. I was always interested in that, and then I think when I first started the very first psychotherapy was 6 years ago. Therapist was like, oh, maybe you have this male part of you that you want to, pursue. Yeah, interesting, like this dominance part of me, but I was raised as a nice girl, and it's really hard to let it go. And I think thanks to this new identity that I'm exploring my new identity, my true identity just comes to the surface, and I'm slowly seeing myself more the way I truly am. It's really hard to let go this picture your parents, my mother painted for me. Like she wanted me to be this obedient, nice girl who probably not talk back, etc., etc. And it really impacts how assertive you are, and how I couldn't like stand for myself for many years. Just trying to be nice and people pleaser. It's really hard to like drop this. Yeah, and I think my mother she's already gone, so like my both parents already died, so I'm kind of alone in this journey, and I'm happy at the same time because I don't have this heavy baggage of dealing with whatever picture they had about me, and so nobody's blocking me from becoming who I really am. So yeah, that's something I really appreciate. I'm grateful for that. Yeah, so that's so the difference. Right. It's a difficult question. The question was, what's the difference before and after?
Yeah. Or maybe just for me to understand in terms of maybe also sexual attraction, right? As a lesbian and also a trans man. Is it the same, or what's the difference between the two?
I was thinking about it a lot, and even I had a conversation with my gay friend, and he was like, "So you're gay?" I was like, "Am I gay? Like, why should I drop this label of being lesbian because my gender identity changes? Like, I'm still attracted to women, and it didn't change. Suddenly, changing my gender identity doesn't change my sexual orientation. Actually, well, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And so I'm joking about it a little bit because, I was, let's say, successful, like a woman in tech, right? And then suddenly I'm trans man, and it makes me, I love it. It makes me, it makes me white, privileged man.
Now you can
Straight.
enjoy all those privileges.
Straight, right? White, straight, privileged man. I was like, I, I don't want that. And then I was joking, like, I could be this Trojan horse that, I will make impact. I would make change from the inside.
Exactly.
Good. But it's sad at the same time, because before it really makes me sad very often, because before I had access to so many resources because I was women in tech, right? I was part of this. And then suddenly it's unavailable to me because I identify as man. So all the events that are going on for lesbians, for bisexuals, for women are not for me anymore. And I have a lot of female friends and I feel very close to women, and that's not available to me anymore.
But how come? Is it you who decide that?
No, it's the social groups. They say it's for women only. And whenever, like, I was in need to get some connections, to get maybe connected business connections, and I was really hoping to get some support from different groups. And I was introduced to join, like, because somebody wanted to help me. I was introduced to this a women group, and I applied. I was like, can I join? I can't say about myself that I'm a woman because I'm trans man, but I'm a feminist, and I'm pretty close to a woman and everything. And the answer is no. It's like suddenly I don't have access to that. And it makes me really sad because, that was one of the things also I was really considering when I was about to come out in the business world. Like, I was really, procrastinating with that and dealing it because, like, what do I say to my LinkedIn network? Right? What do I do with LinkedIn? Do I just, delete my account? Do I start from scratch because now I'm a man? What do I do? And you need to have a lot of, mental capabilities to actually face it. And it's very often it's just alone battle, and it's a battle with yourself, with your imposter syndrome. Very often I just catch this imposter syndrome.
How does it show up for you?
Well, like, am I already a man? Like, who am I? Like, how the world perceive me? Like, should I stick to how everybody else see me, or how do I project myself? Does it actually, like, I send a message, is it received? Right? So I was really waiting to the very last moment where I really had to look for a job because I took a break from work, and I really wanted to, get back to the job marketplace as a man and apply for a job as Victor. That was the whole difficult road for me. Really bumpy, really bumpy. And it took me a few months to find a job. Probably for some time I was sabotaging it because, again, imposter syndrome, and then, still in therapy, still like fighting the mental health issues. So it is really hard, and I think it's hard on every single trans person, and that's we're not understood, I think, properly, because people will look at you and like judge you from your looks, but you have no idea what's happening actually in my life, and like how much trouble I have. Very often we have problems with our families because people, like, our families where the relatives do not accept who we are. and then you make it difficult, then you feel unsafe. Then how can you feel safe in the, job areas? And then different ideas about whether this employer like respect me for who I am, etc. So it's been very difficult, and I very often I felt pretty unsure in the treatment processes. And I think I like when you invited me to this podcast, I'm still in kind of unsure, like uncertain place, because I got a job it was just 2 months ago when I learned that I got a job. And, I got the offer after a couple of interviews. I got this offer, and I was like, well, okay, thank you. I really appreciate this. I want to work, but do you know, I'm like legally, my name is still Hannah. And this is the most vulnerable moment for you. Like, what if somebody else think of you as a fraud? Like, you have all the proof that you're female, like your ID, all your documents, all your certificates, like everything tells that you're female, and then suddenly you projected this identity of a male, and would it be understood or not? Would it be accepted? And happily, the job I found, they allowed me to use my preferred name. So yeah, I'm so proud because this is the very first job as Victor, and everybody at work know me as Victor. Congratulations. Thank you. So this is a really big thing. And from the very beginning, I feel welcomed. I feel accepted, respected. So this is something huge. And I think it makes the whole experience for this Portuguese job is really important. And I'm very grateful. And I keep telling them that I'm grateful for this opportunity. And I think this is also appreciated.
I'm happy to hear that.
Thank you.
To hear that you have a good experience
Thank
there.
you.
And I'm curious around what misconceptions are there usually for transgender? What misconceptions have you experienced as well?
Maybe I'm not maybe I'm in my bubble. Probably I am. Like I interact with people. I try to find people similar to me and interact with them. Misconceptions. Well, I think the biggest misconception I faced was that trans woman is somebody thought of me that I'm a trans woman. Like totally the opposite way. So the person thought that I am a trans woman, so I was born a woman and I'm transitioning to a man, which is twisted. That's the total opposite. Because I was born as a female, as a woman, and I'm transitioning into my true identity, which is man.
Yeah.
And that's why it's called trans man, because if I was born as a male, it would be cis man. Yeah. So I think that's the biggest misconception about me. Yeah.
But you were talking before about feeling lonely in the process, right? And so have you found a support system?
No. It's really hard in Portugal. Maybe in any other countries. I don't know. It's the language barrier, right? So there are groups, support groups, but mainly in Portuguese. And so I have this idea to create a brand new group, support group, which would be English speaking. And it's just, growing within me. It's something part for a little bit. But yeah, I think I want to do that. So not only Portuguese speakers, but also for foreigners. So I meet more and more people who are trans, who are non-binary or went through the transition process. And I think at some point gonna have, I want to build this community to support each other and somehow build a knowledge base, because I just get, pieces of information, and very often from my Portuguese friends, it's something like old news because it was like they were going through the process 5 years ago, or the information is very often not up to date. And then there's probably legal aspects of law is changing, etc. And I know even hospitals and public services is changing. So probably specialists are moving on, and there are new specialists, new doctors joining the public health system. So I want to at some point organize this knowledge for our good, so we can support each other and have like up to date information.
That's amazing.
I'm hoping it's gonna work out. If I make a commitment, I want to make sure that I can stick to that.
Yeah. It's your quest.
Yes. Yes.
It's beautiful. And what has surprised you during this process?
Well, people keep surprising me about how curious, like you're an example, right? How people are curious about the transition and about myself, about the story. That's surprising. For me, personally, I think I'm surprised with myself. Like, this is not set in stone. So it's not like I will now make plans for the next 5 years that I want to be as close as, born a male as possible. I'm curious about myself and how my idea of myself, like where I want to be, how does this change? Yeah, it's similar to the question like you get in the recruitment process. Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Like, well, how can you
How can you know?
How can you tell like where will I be in like 3 months? Right? So yeah, I think I'm surprised with myself how agile this is for me.
Yeah.
And I think I give a little bit of thought to like the binary, non-binary aspects. Yeah, again, I think we're all humans, and we have so many different varieties in terms of gender, and I just decided about the answer to this question, that as of now, I think I want to become more masculine. That's my goal. And then when I feel like, okay, this is the version of myself that I wanted wanted to achieve in my life. And then I think I'll just let go and start playing with that and start, like, I don't know, questioning what's binary, what's not binary, and play with colors. I'm still afraid of that. It's just still I want to adapt to this binary word. Maybe because I was feeling safe and secure, and I want to build this security, like this inner feeling of security, and then play with non-binary aspects.
I don't understand this.
Okay.
What does it mean?
Right. Thank you for saying that. This is really important. Well, so the binary thing means that world is divided into male and female creatures, right? And non-binary, it's something different. You have people who really don't want to be seen as
in the spectrum,
one specific gender, or there are people who are gender fluid. And for example, my very good friend just recently told me that for them, this changes during the day. So they like where they have really feminine look, and they want to, like, wear very femme clothes. And then suddenly they just walk the street and they're like, oh no, but now I feel more masculine. And what follows is the thought that I want to get rid of these clothes and just change to more masculine one. So this is really interesting about people. That's not my feeling, but just people don't want to conform to some like binary divisions. And then people with different pronouns. There is plenty of online pages where you can learn about different pronouns. When I was doing my homework, because at some points in my psychotherapy, I realized that I'm trans, and so probably this is my thing. So I was like, okay, I need to explore pronouns a little bit. And I learned actually that pronouns that speak to me most are hum, from human.
Mm.
And I'm still not there yet to, claim my space and say, okay, from now on, you speak to me in this. Yeah. But sometimes people don't want to be either referred as he or she, but they use they, them. At some point, even before I was interested in this trans topics, I think it's politically correct to refer to somebody as them, because then they can correct you and tell you like what are their pronouns, their proper pronouns, and at the same time they don't feel offended that you use he or she, right? There are so many varieties. Like people can feel in some percentage female, some percentage male, and then there are different proportions. There is something like called like two spirit, something to explore, to read about. It's really interesting.
What comes across is the self-awareness that it takes, right? And that curiosity all the time.
Yes.
Connection with self.
And curiosity about oneself, right? So I think in this modern world, we're so in rush. We're just chasing, money, career, wealth. We just forget to stop for a second and think about ourselves. And because we are growing up this in this society or this environment, and how that influenced us, and, dictated all the norms, etc. Right? So it's interesting, like how people forget to take a pause and think about some important topics.
And what are some of the lessons that you've learned?
Lessons. I'm still learning lessons. Usually lessons you associate with mistakes, and mistakes are I don't know. I think one of the biggest lessons is patience. Sometimes I just get frustrated with like how slow things are going, and then I stop and I ask universe, okay, so what lesson I need to learn here? And very often it's like patience and let it go, slowing down. That's the biggest thing, I guess.
Beautiful. And what advice would you give to people going through this process at the beginning of the process, or when they have this kind of feelings that, who am I?
I think it's important to have a good psychotherapist. I think psychotherapy is for everybody, but especially if you're going through some serious things like transition, it's necessary to have a good therapist and be patient with yourself, accepting that you don't have to make decisions along the way. Like you can make decision not to make decision. Right? And just park it and leave it for later and observe and wait till you'll be ready to make a decision, and perhaps try to understand people. And that even though we really need to be accepted, we really need these questions to be asked about our identity. Very often people just make assumptions and just go because it's easier, right? It's easy to put a label and move on because that's our instinct, right? When you get scared, you just assess the situation and understand, okay, this is not a life threat. Okay, let's go. People can get hurt because of that, but we need to just keep in mind that not every person is the same. We're not giving so much time to think about topics, and however we want to change somebody to it or influence somebody to ask questions. So I don't know, it can meet with resistance, and very often the effect could be totally the opposite, and people, instead of being more understandable, they'll just resist and be more rude. So just be aware of that this could happen.
Interesting. Vic, is there anything else that we haven't covered that you would like to add?
Wow. No, I think I'm good. It was a really good conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you for your openness and your vulnerability and your courage to go through this process. And yeah.
Oh, thank you for the opportunity. Yeah, so I'm pretty happy we did it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being with us in the Life Lessons Lounge. Remember, every story has its wisdom. Join us next time for more insights and inspiration. Until then, keep learning, keep growing, and keep sharing your own story.